So, da sind wir wieder. Hab wieder mal ein bisschen Zeit
A
gefunden.
blade embraces its
Schnauze. So.
as a ju-
Hoffentlich war das drin. Ich habe jetzt nicht auf die Zeit geachtet.
cherish their gems.
Ah.
So this is a day in the life of the traveler. Learning more about you all the time.
The wind knows me.
What do we do? The whole situation is so confusing.
Ich habe ein paar Gedanken, aber gehen wir die Dinge Schritt für Schritt an.
Good plan. Impossible things don't just happen. We'll get to the truth one way or another.
Ach ja.
Just relax. Even if everyone else suspects Lenny and Lynette, at least we will be supporting them from the stands. Besides, I doubt Farina understands any more about what happened than we do.
Tja, hoffentlich.
Thanks, Navia. Well, we'll be going then.
Best of luck to you.
Dann wollen wir mal, ne?
Ah, finally, you're back. Well, how did your investigation go?
To be honest, you might be disappointed.
No. We're already very grateful that you were willing to help.
Well now, don't you all look disappointed. Don't tell me that your investigation came up empty-handed. That was to be expected, of course. The guilty can never produce proof of their innocence. But don't let that stop you. I shall be terribly disappointed should you, my most anticipated foe, concede so easily.
Warte, bald wirst du es verstehen.
Since both parties are present, I declare that the trial regarding the magic show incident is now in session. Firstly, in order for the audience to understand the causes and results of the incident, could we please have Mr. Linney explain the trick?
Yes, of course. I will explain while Lynette demonstrates on stage. All the necessary items have been prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Linney. In that case, I take your statement to be that you ran to and remained hidden within the magic box in the audience stands once the trick began, and thus could not have committed the crime. Is this correct?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor.
In that case, I call upon the prosecution. Lady Farina, do you wish to refute his statement in any way?
Why, of course I do. Allow me to take the first shot and break this case wide open. Mr. Linney is clearly lying. There is no way you could have been in the box the whole time if you were to abduct Halsey and murder Cowell. In fact, I'd say you were hardly in that tunnel at all.
That is simply your hypothesis based on the presumption that I'm guilty.
Oh, is that so? And if I may ask, what did you hear while you were inside your box?
The roaring countdown of the crowd, of course. That's how I kept track of the time and built anticipation for the finale.
And you didn't hear anything else at all? Nothing that might leave an impression of any kind?
No, nothing.
I see. But when the count reached 30 seconds or so, there was a thud. One so loud that I believe practically everyone heard it.
Huh?
Hey, hang on. Something's not right here.
Wie kann Lynn den Knall nicht gehört haben?
Yeah, I'm sure he could have heard a noise that loud from inside the box.
I was right by the box and I definitely heard the thud.
Look at those scales. Could those mean...
Sie repräsentieren vermutlich die Haltung der Oratrice.
Well then, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to use the words of the magician himself. You never know what can happen in the blink of an eye. Indeed, it seems his alibi can also collapse in the blink of an eye. Of course, I have armed myself to do far more than smash your alibi. Confidence cannot go unfounded, and my foundations are rock solid. Tell me, aren't you and Lynette actually from the House of the Hearth?
The House of the Hearth?
Die beiden sind Fatui?
No wonder they did something like this.
So the serial disappearances were the Fatui's doing. Now it all makes sense.
I've got a feeling that what happened on stage probably wasn't just an accident.
That's irrelevant. Our identities have nothing to do with what happened.
Indeed. Then perhaps you could tell us everything that happened during that 1 minute. Your first priority is to prove yourself innocent after all. I'm sure there is little that needs to be kept secret now. Unless your script already has holes in it. The Outlander is speechless. My, oh my, don't they look flabbergasted? Now comes the infighting and discord, I suppose. This was almost too easy. Good thing I made all those preparations. Seems the all-nighter I pulled last night is really paying off.
Hey, Linny, why didn't you tell us this before?
Linny und Lynette sind Fatui.
Order! Order! Mr. Linney, allow me to re-establish the facts. Lady Farina has raised 2 points. First, when the thud was heard in the Opera House, you were neither in the box nor the tunnel. Second, you and Ms. Lynette are both members of the House of the Hearth. Are these claims true?
Ein Zauberer ist auf jeden Fall in der Lage, andere hinters Licht zu finden. Angesichts der Art und Weise, wie Linne seine Identität verborgen hat, könnte dies alles im Voraus arrangiert worden sein. Außerdem ist der Graf zusammen mit den anderen Mitarbeitern des Hauses Grafs hier in Fontaine. Sie müssen irgendwas geplant haben. Ich wurde schon früher von den Fatuien getäuscht und jetzt?
Please answer my question, Mr. Linney.
I'm sorry. Yes, they're true, Your Honor.
I knew it!
Well, that's it. We might as well move on to the sentencing already.
What should we do now?
Herr Richter, darf ich etwas sagen?
Granted.
Mein Mandant hat eine wichtige Information zurückgehalten. Meine Verteidigung kann nicht fortgesetzt werden.
In that case, what is your request?
Ich bitte um eine kurze Vertagung. Es gibt Dinge, die wir besprechen müssen.
Is that really necessary? They're already as good as guilty.
The defendant deceived their own attorneys. What is there left to discuss?
Order! Order, I say! Your request is reasonable, and we shall adjourn. This trial will reconvene in 1 hour.
So you would stick to Mr. Linney's defense even after knowing what you do now? You certainly have more professionalism than I thought. In that case, my dear audience, let's allow the joy of victory to steep for a little while longer.
Während die Verhandlung vertragen wird...
Well, this is awkward. I didn't think the Hydro Archon would dig all that up. I'm sorry, Traveler and Paimon.
Yeah, sorry.
Ugh. Paimon doesn't know where to start. We trusted you two. We based our entire reasoning on the assumption that you weren't bad guys. Not to set the wrong tone or anything, but Paimon's really mad!
I'm very sorry. I know you're angry, and reasonably so, but please, let me explain. I know you've clashed with the Fatui several times before. I wouldn't be surprised if just hearing the word is enough to make you upset. But our organization is very, very large, and the Harbingers have very different personalities and goals.
Right now, we want to save people. As many as we can.
That's right. I'm sure we're on the same page when it comes to this nation and the disaster that its people might face. I knew if it weren't for our respective identities, we could become good friends. That's why I didn't wish to flat out lie to you, but chose to hide some details instead. The truth is very important, but being completely transparent about everything would see us spending more effort than we need to.
Was sagt uns, dass dies nicht nur eine weitere Lüge ist?
Right. So, you be the judge. Heck, if I were you, I fear that I'd even struggle to trust me at this point. You met a Fatus who works as a magician, a trickster by trade. All by coincidence, too. But still, I'm asking you to trust me. I am no criminal. At least, not in this case.
Sorry. Please forgive us.
Well, you both say that, but...
Dann erkläre mir zu etwas anderes. Wo warst du, als der Zauber vorgefügt wurde?
Right. Let's hear your answer first, and no lies now!
Of course. I'll answer any question you ask. We've been trying to find out how the Oratrice operates. We want to know why it has a consciousness. Why can it deliver sentences accurately? During our investigations, we learned that the machine's core is beneath it. From that moment on, Lynette and I have been designing this box swap trick, with the objective of getting close to the core.
Is that why you needed a whole minute?
That's right. In truth, the audience would take about 75 seconds to count down from 60, while I would only need 15 to get to the opposite box. So, after jumping into the tunnel, I accessed the Opera House basement via the vent, and went to investigate the room in which the core is stored.
That air vent was created during the construction of the tunnel specifically to execute this step.
Und was hast du herausgefunden?
Well, nothing. As soon as I reached that room and was about to investigate, I heard someone's voice. Which should have been impossible, of course. I was quite certain that I was the only one in the room. That voice seemed to recognize me and tried to speak to me. I chose to err on the side of caution and retreated the way I came. On the way back, I saw the broken vase and the clothes on the ground, but the countdown was almost finished, so there wasn't time to give it any thought. After that, the homicide occurred just as you saw.
Well, that explains why you didn't hear the thud.
Und warum wolltet ihr herausfinden, wie die Oratrice funktioniert?
Because of that prophecy I told you about, of course. We must know all we can about this nation's secrets in order to deal with that prophesized crisis.
That's the only way we can save everyone.
So, there you have it. The whole truth. I swear, I didn't hide anything from you this time. It was never my wish to proceed under this cloud of mistrust either. But like I said earlier, you can be the judge. If you want to leave because you don't trust the Fatui, there's nothing I can do to stop you.
Well, Traveler, you decide. Paimon will follow your lead however you choose.
Ich glaube an Fakten. Wenn du nicht der Täter bist, werde ich dich weiterhin verteidigen. Wenn das Verbrechen ist, dann wird dich deine Verurteilung erwarten.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for giving us a chance.
The current problem is that the scales are tipped pretty badly against you two. If we want to refute the Hydro Archon's accusations, we're gonna need a seriously watertight defense.
Tatsächlich haben wir bereits die entscheidenden Beweise unter uns.
Huh?
Die Vertagung ist vorbei. Lasst uns zurückkehren.
Oh, Paimon thinks she gets what you mean.
Nachdem Linny den Tunnel betreten hat, gelang er durch die Lüftungsöffnung in den Raum, in den der Ortiz-Kern aufbewahrt wurde. Daher wurde er auch nicht als Zeugen dessen, was im Tunnel vorfiel. Konnte folglich nicht den dumpfen Knall hören. Linny gibt an, er hat eine mysteriöse Stimme in der Ortiz-Kammer vernommen, die sich unter dem Opernhaus befindet. Ah ja. Der Vertagung ist vorbei und der spannende Prozess wird wieder aufgenommen.
Both parties have returned to their positions. Let us continue the trial. When last we left off, Mr. Linney acknowledged the new evidence presented by Lady Farina as fact. Therefore, Lady Farina may continue stating her reconstruction of the events.
That took long enough. Now then, if everyone would lend me their attention. At this stage, let's revisit that scene from Linny's perspective.
Ermittle anhand der Schilderung der Ereignisse die Gegenseite, welche ihren Aspekt als stichhaltig sind. Oh Gott. Oh Gott. Okay. Okay.
As the countdown began, he entered the tunnel.
Soweit so richtig?
When the flatbed trolley passed, he opened the box and got into an altercation with Halsey, which caused the loud thud.
Falsch.
He did not realize that this sound could be heard by everyone in the opera house, which is why he claimed earlier that he could not hear the sound. Finally, he used the vase to knock her out, before making her change clothes to prevent others from recognizing her.
Das in einer Minute, natürlich.
At this time, Cowell arrived in the tunnel, having heard that strange noise, and caught Linny red-handed. So Linny proceeded to knock him out too before stuffing him into that box. Afterward, Linny passed the unconscious Halsey to his accomplice through the magic box in the audience stands, before operating the devices such that Cowell's death would be ruled an accident.
Aber warum sollte er das machen?
And there you have it. That's the truth behind what happened.
Does the defendant's side have any objections to Lady Farina's description of the events?
Oh, natürlich.
The key to refuting Lady Farina is the order of events, what Linny experienced and what he saw.
Na ja, dann.
According to Linny, he left via the vent after entering the tunnel. He couldn't have had that altercation with Halsey.
Ne, dann ist es... Ja.
Linny went to the room that contains the Oratrice's core. This is the actual truth.
Ne, dann kann es ja nur das ja sein.
Hmm.
Nein?
Lenny did not take part in the underground altercation. He only witnessed traces of the aftermath.
Attention! Ace Detective Paimon has something to say!
Okay, Paimon.
When the countdown started, Lenny did indeed go into the tunnel. But he immediately used a vent to access the Opera House basement, which is where the underground core of the Oratrice is stored. Once he reached that area, he heard a voice in what should have been an empty room. Since he felt something was amiss, he returned immediately. The crime scene had already developed by the time he reached the tunnel again, and in order to complete the magic trick, he did not remain there for any length of time. Finally, he reached the surface, and that was when the accident happened from his point of view. Therefore, he's innocent.
Sehr schön.
Paimon did it! Paimon actually managed to say all that! Wasn't it awesome?
In other words, you believe that he knew nothing of the incident?
That's right!
Außerdem halte ich die Argumentation der Klägerin für fehlerhaft.
My reasoning?
Die Requisiten der Bühne wurden absichtlich von jemandem manipuliert. Aber du behauptest, Körbe sei zufällig auf Lenny gestoßen.
If that's the case, then if Cowell hadn't entered the tunnel, who was the entire setup meant to kill? Assuming that what you say is true, Lenny only needed to kidnap the young girl to cause a new disappearance case. What would the point of killing someone on stage be?
Oh, they have a point.
That's right, you tell them! And that's why they're partners of mine. They've managed to turn things around.
Oh, well, your denial is very strident, I'll give you that. But what proof do you have to back your claims?
Erinnerst du dich noch dran, wie du Lennys Alibi widerlegt hast?
Of course I do. If he had been in the magic box the whole time, how could he have not heard that sound? Why do you ask? You're saying that he wasn't?
Deine Aussage ist jetzt zu meiner Waffe geworden. Deine Aussage ist nur zu meinem Shell.
Are you sure we don't need to give this more thought? Paimon thinks there's something off here.
Ich habe legit nicht nachgedacht.
Are you sure we don't need to give this more thought?
Ach komm, sei ruhig.
That's right! Lenny wasn't in the box or in the tunnel. That's why he didn't hear anything strange during the performance. This means that when the crime happened, Lenny had already entered the basement via the vent. The same clue you used to disprove his alibi has now become the best proof! Ha ha! How do you like that?
Well played.
To think you'd use such logic. Well then, if it wasn't Lenny who committed the crimes, then who was it?
Der Täter war... Oh Gott. Ja. Nachdem Leni von jeglichem Verdacht versprochen wäre, wäre dann nur noch der restliche Mitglied der Zaubertruppe, die sich Zauberrequisiten hätten können. Leni erklärt ausführlich, wie der Zaubertrick funktionieren sollte. Ja. Währenddessen übernahmen Leni nach dem Kostümwechsel als Assistants gemeinsam die Interaktion auf der Bühne. Das Geldverfahren missten, sie wurde aus einem unbekannten Grund in Tunnel zurückgelassen.
The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant. He would have been able to tamper with the equipment. Halsey is the missing person and an ordinary audience member. Or did she have her own scheme all along?
Okay, dann ist es eher
The
hier.
deceased's name is
That can't be right. Are you serious? The killer was, in fact, Cowell, the deceased!
Oh, is that so? How interesting! Let's hear your reasoning then.
What I must do next is recreate the truth. What Cowell did, and how he went from would-be perpetrator to victim. No one entered or left the Opera House through its entrances. So where would the criminal have wanted to take Halsey? The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant. He would have been able to tamper with the equipment. Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel, so there must have been some fear that she would attract attention. The sound we heard may have come from a clash between the missing Halsey and the criminal. Linny was not in the tunnel at that moment, which gave our criminal ample time. It would have been tough for both people to fit into... The deceased's name is No one entered or left the... Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel. The sound we heard may have come... Linny was not in the tunnel at that moment. It would have been tough for both... Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel. No one entered or... Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel.
Wow. Okay.
No one entered or left... The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's... No one entered or... Halsey's clothing was in the...
Okay. Wie konnte man vorher wissen, dass... Also ja.
It would have been tough for...
Es tut mir leid.
It would have been tough for both... Linny was not in the tunnel. No one entered or left the Opera House through it. Linny was not in the tunnel. It would have been tough for both...
Jesus Christ. Ha! Abgesehen davon, wie er starb, verfügt Roy über Mittel, die er brauchte, um das Verbrechen zu begehen. Das seltsame Kanal im Wahrscheinlichkeit zwischen Kanal und war nicht einmal eine Minute lang, sondern die Zentimeter gerecht, um also so holen. Das Aussagen des Geheimnisverfolgung betrat und verließ zwischen niemand in Ophaus, daher war es unmöglich, das Gelände zu verlassen. Ganz geschweige davon, dass die Zuschauer auf jeden Fall gesehen hätten, wenn er aus dem Zauberschrank gekommen wäre.
What's wrong, Traveler? Are you still having trouble figuring things out?
Wo um Himmels Willen ist denn Halsey hin?
I see how it is. So this was all just a bluff. And here I thought you had something to show for it. But it seems you're still
Look, since we're at a dead end, why not consider a different track? Just like the trick as it transpired, the end result must have been utterly different from the magician's initial design.
If only we knew how Halsey disappeared.
Well, that would be nice, but the tunnel only has 3 exits, and none of them seem very likely. And it's not like this is a magic trick where you can just make a real live person disappear. You know, like you did from that water tank, Lynette.
Ist dem Wassertank verschwunden? Kann das Wasser gewesen sein?
Excuse my interruption, dear opponents, but do you not see that the crowd is growing impatient? There is no greater sin in this opera house than an awkward delay in the performance.
If the defense is unable to make further effective arguments, we will move on to the next stage of the trial.
Wartet.
Linny was not in the tunnel at that moment. The sound we heard may have come from a clash between the missing Halsey and the criminal. The deceased's name is Cowell. The vase was not broken by chance. It was used to cover important evidence.
Paimon gets it! It all comes together if Halsey disappeared instead of being kidnapped. Lynette escaped from the water tank, vanishing gradually and leaving only clothes behind. If there's a similar method where a person could be transformed into water...
Oh, just a moment, please. I do hope you know how preposterous you sound at the moment. How could a person ever be transformed into water? This is reality where